everybody, how's it going? Like Butter here, and today I wanted to make a Division video to talk about a few things that I really think need to be discussed at this point in the game for the Division. Now, I was playing in the Dark Zone a little bit earlier today, solo. I was grouping up with some people and kind of just, what I originally was going to do is I was going to make a PP19 video, talk about my thoughts of the gun, and then I started testing some other stuff out with Alpha Bridge. I'm actually using Alpha Bridge in this video here with the SMG. I am using a PP19 and I'm using a MP7, and the talents that I have are actually really interesting, and it's really fun how they work together. I'm using Self-Preserve, Vicious, Hurried, and I'm using my 204 MP7, which has obviously Brutal, Deadly, and Responsive. So it's really helpful to be able to be healing for so much, but also have such high crit chance and whatnot. And it's cool because at this point with Hurried, with your crit chance being so high from, you know, Vicious and the fact that I'm using one of the older MP7s, even though I've been testing a newer MP7 as well, you crit, all you have to do is crit 10 times in one clip, which means out of 40 bullets, and you also got to remember it's actually more than 40 bullets if you're hitting headshots because of one is none. So all you have to do is hit about 10 crits to do the amount of reload speed as Firecrest. So I think this is a good way to get the reload speed from Firecrest, but also still be using Alpha Bridge and have other talents rather than just the reload speed. And I played in the Dark Zone today, and I think I had the least fun that I've ever had in the game so far, and it's so frustrating because the Division has so much potential and it's such a fun game, and it's the type of game where I get on, and depending on what people are using, I either have a lot of fun or I don't have any fun at all. And what I ran into was a full group of rogues who were manhunt. There was an entire server fighting them. Nobody could kill them, and the reason was because they were the combination of gear sets and the combination of skills that they were using made them almost impenetrable, almost impossible to kill. However, they could kill you in about one shot. So I think one of them was running Sentry's Call with a shotgun. Another one was using an M870 with Alpha Bridge. Obviously had, like, you know, the best talents you could ask for. Was just one-shotting everybody. Because you got to think, right? If you have high crit chance and you have crit hit damage and you have accuracy and you have all those things on a shotgun, I don't think Alpha Bridge was really meant to be made for shotguns, because shotguns have reasons why having too many talents is just overpowered for shotguns, because the shotguns don't shoot individual bullets, they shoot pellets. So if you're getting a lot of crit chance, say you have like Vicious and you have Responsive and you have Fierce and you have Deadly and Brutal and all these talents, it becomes overpowered. And I think a lot of people have been saying, you know, shotguns need to be nerfed, but it's actually not the shotguns that are the problem. It's the combination of shotguns with Pulse, with Smart Cover, with Alpha Bridge, and with Sentry. Those four things are what make the shotguns unbelievably overpowered when you run into a group of people. Now alone, you know, you see somebody using a shotgun by themselves, it's not that big of a deal. But you run into a group of four that is completely just coordinated and know how to abuse the power of, you know, using all of those skills together. And when you mix in triage and overheal and the fact that they're never dying, but not only that, the fact that they're getting their skills, those skills that are allowing them to one-shot people back so quickly because of triage, it kind of creates this massive problem. And I think they also had somebody using an SMG on top of the two shotgunners and a reclaimer. And so they had infinite explosives, infinite incendiaries, on top of the damage boost from Smart Cover, the damage resilience from Smart Cover, the damage from Pulse, and the, you know, the 6 talent damage on Alpha Bridge. Not to mention if they're using Savage or you know, anything else that's going to kind of spike their damage. And, like, even the people that were killing people knew that it was overpowered and knew that it wasn't fun, you know? It was like a group of Russian people, and every time they killed somebody, they'd be like, sorry, friend, sorry. Like, they knew that what they were doing was overpowered, and you could just tell that in their voice that they weren't enjoying it. So, if you have something, right, and I promise you guys, I'll get to the point here in a second. If you have something that's not fun to use and not fun to be killed by, then there's something wrong and something needs to be changed. Now, do shotguns need to be nerfed? No, I don't think so, because I don't think shotguns are the problem. Does smart cover need to be nerfed? I think in some ways, yes. Does pulse need to be nerfed? Probably not. You know, does triage need to be changed? Maybe, you know, possibly. But, you know, the little bit longer fights that take more strategy, a lot of people enjoy, including myself. But when it feels kind of repetitive where you're shooting people and they're not taking damage, but they're one-shotting you, that's not fun, you know? And I think with these sets, with these gear sets, and I don't feel like these gear sets when they come out, like Alpha Bridge, right? I think Alpha Bridge is really good for SMGs, assault rifles, snipers. It's fun. You can use different combinations of it, and it's enjoyable, and it's strong, but not overpowered. But when you use it with something like a shotgun, you get something just disgustingly overpowered, and with combination of all the other skills and the fact that they have 4, you know, defensive vaults, and like there's just so many different ways that that team can stay alive and never ever die, yet return fire and do so much damage that they can actually shred people through defensive vault, you know, is insane. Now, even if they nerf the M870 by 20%, say they reduce the weapon damage by 20%, it wouldn't fix the problem, because the problem is the combination of the things that we talked about before. Now, if I were to be somebody working at Ubisoft or somebody working at, you know, Massive and was developing the Division, this is what I would do to fix this problem, because you guys all know, anyone who plays the Division, either you're using shotguns and you're not enjoying it. There's no way you can say one-shotting somebody in a skill-based game is enjoyable, because I don't think it is. Maybe for the first couple of times, but then eventually it's going to get repetitive. It's going to feel like you're playing Call of Duty. And that's why I refuse to do the shotgun build, because I want to make fun builds and do fun things that work in different ways, and I really like being able to strafe and use an MP7 and hit consistent headshots and feel rewarding when you get a kill, or, you know, same thing with, you know, whether it's assault rifles or sniper rifles and that kind of thing. And I think that's enjoyable, but what's holding people back is these gear sets that are kind of making people a slave to their set, right? Like, they're playing a certain way to play to the set. So, for example, Deadeye. Deadeye is forcing people to either hip fire or just use no scope with their sniper rifles. It's forcing them to play like that. Now, I tried the Deadeye build. It was really strong. I didn't enjoy it, really, because I felt like hip firing the sniper rifle and kind of just spam spraying got a little bit repetitive and a little bit stupid, and it didn't feel rewarding when you kill somebody like that. Like, when you kill someone with unexpected, like, 2-hit damage, it felt almost wrong and not enjoyable. Now, how do you fix this problem, right? Because, like I said, it's not only the shotguns, it's not only smart cover, it's not only pulse, it's not only, you know, Alpha Bridge. Those things individually aren't overpowered. But when you have a combination of somebody that has a perfect roll, M870, with all of the talents that you want, you know, mixed with all of those other skills that their teammates are giving them, that's going to cause a huge issue. So what do you do to fix this problem, right? And I can't help to feel like a lot of these gear sets were tested, but not tested enough. Like, what I mean by tested enough is, in order to get proper testing on a game that's this complex, like the Division, which has so many different stats and so many different items and so many different combinations of items with all the different gear sets and ways that things can be used in certain playstyles, I think it takes not 5 people sitting in a room testing the game, 5 developers. I think it takes thousands upon thousands of people who play the game daily, who put hours and hours and hours into the game, like myself, to find these types of you know, overpowered combinations or, you know, exploitive things that make a certain gear set more powerful than it should be, that kind of thing. And I think what I would do personally, now if I was the head of Ubisoft, you know, and I was to make a decision right now about the future of the division, this is what I would do. When 1.4 comes out, do some minor changes, maybe nerf the M870 a little bit, or make it so that Sentry's Call doesn't work with shotguns, because they did say in the state of the game when they talked about it originally getting changed that it was meant to be a sniper gear set. And I think hitting headshots with a sniper rifle should be rewarding, and then, you know, hence getting the extra damage or the extra you know, the extra bonus for being accurate. And I think that that would be okay on snipers. I also think, I was trying a burst rifle earlier today. I got an SA-58 tactical, something like that. The burst rifles are atrocious. They're so bad. Even though they actually shoot bursts, they shoot 3-round bursts, it's almost impossible because of the recoil. Even with stability and accuracy, it's almost impossible to hit more than the first shot. And it's so slow that I honestly think that they should take Sentry's Call, right? Don't like nerf it in any way, shape, or form right now. Make it so that shotguns don't proc, you know, don't proc Sentry's Call, because it's just it's just stupid in my opinion. I think it's really, really not hard to hit this giant spread, because you got to think, right? If you have an M870, you have this gigantic spread of pellets. Only one of those pellets needs to hit their head in order for them to get marked. Now, maybe if the entire spread, like all of the pellets hit the head, okay, I can understand, because that's a really well-placed shot, and that person hit a really, really good shot on somebody. But I think only hitting one pellet out of the 10 that come out of a shotgun to give them that a mark is just ridiculous, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is Alpha Bridge with shotguns is just way, way too overpowered. So I would change it so that Alpha Bridge doesn't work with shotguns or something, just for damage control at this point in time, while, you know, 1.4 and 1.5 comes out, and, you know, they add new gear sets, whatever. I personally think that they should fix the gear sets that are already in the game before they start adding new ones, but it will give people, you know, kind of what they paid for, and they can kind of stay on pace with this thing. But what I would do after 1.5 comes out, I would basically revamp the division. And what I mean by revamp the division is I would completely restart in a way that it kind of just, like, I don't know, like, all right, put it this way, right? I think that these sets that we've been playing with for a while, and that we've been putting hours and hours and hours into, you know, building certain builds, as much as you're not going to want to hear this, they need to be left behind. And they need to be kind of, not so much forgotten, but used as an experiment to figure out which sets work the way that they were intended, and which sets were, you know, used in certain ways that can make them overpowered in a certain way. And I think what they need to do is they need to make it so that the level cap is no longer 30, it goes up to 40. And what's going to happen is, you know, you don't have to remove these sets from the game. But the second you have somebody who gets a purple item that outstats, you know, the items, you know, the gear set items. So say you get a level 35 purple, but it has like way higher stats and all these other things that are going to make it almost stupid to use the old gear sets. So what's going to happen? People are going to leave the gear sets behind. And then at level 40, what I would do is I would make gear sets at level 40, but only put gear sets in that we know that work. Okay, Predator's Mark, we know that that worked as intended. It's not super overpowered, it's not super strong, but it works the way that they intended it to work. Sentries, no way, shape, and form sentries should make a return when it hits level 40, unless they make it sniper rifles only and they reduce the amount of damage that can be done to a player. I don't think that with 3 stacks, especially on a, you know, a shotgun where you can just spam it in about a quarter of a second, if you have an SASG or an M870, and you have multiple people running sentry, you can get somebody 3-stacked where the entire team can do increased damage. I think that's wrong. It shouldn't be like that. Or they can reduce the duration. There's a lot of different ways that they could change Sentry's Call, okay? And I would actually turn it from a 5-piece back into a 4-piece. To have 2 gear sets that are 5 pieces just doesn't make sense. So I would turn Strikers and Sentries back into 4-piece, but like nerf them in different ways than they did. Like the way that they tried fixing it didn't work, okay? You know, what they did didn't make sense to me. Like it didn't change the problem. If anything, it just made the sets a little bit stronger because it gave people a reason to build 5 gear sets and then 1 gold item. So what I would do is I would bring the sets that worked as intended and have them be that way, and look at this whole experience as just a one big beta testing, and call it the Division 2.0, and have year 2 content and slowly add in gear sets over monthly periods. So I would say, you know, have like a season 2 pass that you can get for like, I don't know, $40, $50. Or you can buy the DLC individually and have, you know, every about 2.5 to 3 months have one of those DLCs come out. And maybe even do like free updates in between. And then have it so that like that gives us enough time. Now, I don't know if this is possible, guys, okay? I don't work at Ubisoft. I am close with some of the guys at Ubisoft, but, you know, they can't discuss certain things because they'll lose their job if they ever got caught. And I don't know how many people are working on the Division. I don't know how many people, if this is even a possibility. I think that Division 2 is in development. And I think year 2 content, and by basically revamping the Division and calling it the Division 2.0, would kind of like really fix this game, and it would give them a second chance at it. The best way to fix the broken gear sets that are in this game, which by the way, there are just too many to go over, and there's just too many different combinations that make things way too strong. The only way to do this is to increase the level cap, you know, maybe add more story missions or whatever to give people a reason. And you know, on top of that, it will give us more reasons, you know, to explore the outside world. At this point in time, you're not going to be seeing anything outside of the daily missions, the incursions, and the dark zone. All of those amazing level design work that went into making New York City look as beautiful as it is never gets seen because there's nothing to do outside of the dark zone anymore, besides, you know, HVTs and whatever if you want to get Lone Star. And I think this would be amazing because they'll be able to put more missions in, you know, in New York City and give people reasons to kind of farm outside of the dark zone and to get your level up and find gear elsewhere. And then in return, it will make PvP more balanced because then they can make small changes to the way that they want PvP to be ran, since it's already been tested at the highest level of play. And I think this would bring a lot of people back to the Division. I think a lot of people would give it another chance. And I think when people think of a game as being revamped or not really restarted, but kind of changed majorly, people really want to give the game a chance because there's so many people that loved the Division at one point that just don't play it anymore because, you know, they didn't enjoy the direction that it went with certain gear sets and how strong, you know, certain, skills got and that kind of thing. And I think that this would be a huge step in the right direction for the Division. And I want to hear what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this would be a good idea? Now, I understand you guys worked hard on your gear sets and you spent hours and hours and hours. So did I. You know, I have 850 hours on this game. I think I've built a total of like 25 different builds over the time since the gear sets came out, and I've put a fair amount of time into getting the things that I have. However, if the game stays in the state that it's in right now, where you become a slave to your set and have to play a certain way, not how your playstyle is, but because the gear set tells you to play that way, I really think that over time, the game's going to get boring for people and it's not going to be enjoyable. And if that happens, then what we worked for is pointless anyways. I love the game enough where I would rather all of my hard work and all of the amount of hours that I put in my gear sets just completely go down the drain and have them rework it in a way where the game feels more balanced. The balancing is just so off right now in PvP. It's unbelievable. Like, Reclaimer, just throw it out. Sentry's Call, throw it out. Strikers, revamp it. I think Strikers is a decent set, but I think it needs to get revamped. I think the way that the talent works is awful, given, you know, the 11-tick servers or whatever it is. Just basically restart. Restart from scratch, only bring over the gear sets that worked as intended, and then slowly add gear sets over the next year. That's what I would do. That would 100%, in my opinion, completely revive the Division scene and the Division community, because, you know, you'll have so many more things to do. You know, we'll have new gear sets coming out, we'll have balanced PvP, we'll have you know, people working to get to level 40. You'll have Underground, which they could expand on that a little bit, and then whatever survival ends up being. I think there are so many ways that this game could improve, but I just don't know if Massive has the manpower to do it. I hope they do, because my love for this game is more than any other game that I've played. You know, it's insane. The amount of potential this game has is endless. So, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop the video a like. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care, everybody.